What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Kevin Svenson, and today we're going to be discussing the crypto markets. So today's January 6th, 2025. It's the new year. I haven't made a video on this channel in a couple weeks, so it's been quite a long time. But now I am back from the holidays, and so is Bitcoin. Bitcoin is up at 102,000. Now, what you're seeing on the screen here is actually a setup that we played out pretty much exactly in 2021 in the bull market. Right after we broke the all-time high, we retested the 50-day EMA. And this is a Twitter post that I made earlier. And looking at these two charts, you guys can see that, well, Bitcoin is doing pretty much the exact same thing as 2021. You break the all-time high, you hit a local high, you retest the 50-day EMA, and then you run to new highs. Bitcoin, so far, broken the all-time high, hit a local high, retested the 50-day EMA, and now we are bouncing right back. If this was going to be somewhat similar to 2021, well, the next phase is a new all-time high, the continuation of the parabolic trend. Bitcoin is still experiencing exponential higher lows. This is an exponential higher low here at 91,000, much higher than the previous macro low point from 2024. Going into October, when we hit the parabolic trend line, we are elevated way off this trend line, which actually means that if Bitcoin breaks into a new high, well, the parabolic trend line will be even steeper at that point. And that might mean that we could accelerate quickly into the possible local top for that zone before settling up and going up later in the year. There always comes a point when the parabola is just too steep to maintain the trajectory. We're not there yet, right? We still have quite a lot of upside, in my opinion, before things become fully unsustainable. So as of right now, Bitcoin is maintaining the parabola, very much so. I mean, this monthly chart looks epic. We have a huge rejection wick on that monthly candle right there. And if we were to break above that wick high, it would probably trap a lot of short positions. When you have a trending market and there's a rejection wick that's going against the trend, so if you look, the monthly is clearly up and you have this rejection wick. Well, this rejection wick is going against the trend. And if we break this wick high on the monthly, that means all the short positions in that wick are confirmed to be trapped and they're on the wrong side of the trend, and then they must be squeezed. And this sort of textbook setup is suggesting that it's actually sending us up to 134,000, according to how the trapped liquidity short squeeze conversion would take place in a trending market. It's about a 1 to 1.5 of the size of that candle. So this could be a move towards, a multi-month move towards 134,000. That's another possible setup that I see right now. The last time that I made a call like this for this type of a large scale setup was actually down here when we had the ETF approval / rejection candle. I was saying that if we got above that wick high, we could see a 1 to 1.5 move in a trending market. And if you mark up 1 to 1.5, well, we hit that target, even more than that, right? But that was a pretty solid target for this weekly trap liquidity short squeeze. 65,000 was the target at the time for that setup. And now we have another one here. If we get above the wick high, only if we get above the wick high, then the setup is confirmed. Right now, the setup is not confirmed because we haven't broken the wick high. Once you break that sell wall, then the shorts get squeezed at a 1 to 1.5 usually. And I think that's what's going to end the parabolic trend, make us settle up at lower levels before running later in the year. So that is something to look out for as well. So that means Bitcoin could be running up for a few months here before actually ending this trend, and then looking to settle up at lower levels before reaching an actual all-time high for the cycle. There might be multiple phases to this cycle. A lot of people don't like to hear that. A lot of people just want to be told that Bitcoin's going to go up in a straight line and it's going to be really comfortable and there's going to be no problems and you're going to sell at the perfect top and it's all going to be easy. Well, it's usually not easy, guys. Usually the market gives you a moment where it seems like all is lost before we actually end the cycle at a much higher level. There's an all is lost moment that takes place before the all-time high. And I do think that could come somewhere around Q2 of 2025. March, April, we'll hit a very high price and then look to have a big parabolic trend breakdown and then expand the trend, maybe somewhere up. So hitting like 124,000 breakdown and then look to hit something like 142,000. Something along those lines, I think, is quite realistic. Of course, a lot of people will say, Kevin, you're not bullish enough. Why aren't you saying we're going to 200,000 or more? Well, just based on time, what we've done so far, I think it's more realistic to look for prices below that level, below 200,000. So I'm looking for 124,000 as target 1, 142,000 as target 2. And if things go really well, maybe you hit something like 150, 170 at the absolute most. So really 142,000 at the end when everything is said and done. And I want to pull up my Bitcoin halving cycle profit indicator. And this is a model showing that normally around the 40th week, we're getting really bullish going into the 40th week. If you look at 2017, we were actually still really low in price before getting ultra bullish towards the 80th week. If you look at 2021, you can see Bitcoin actually had somewhat of a local top around the 40th week, though of course it wasn't the top on the 40th week. It was almost 50 weeks after the halving that we had a top, right? So halving 40 weeks is the green zone. And usually the cycle ends around the 80th week. Almost every time after the 80th week post-halving, 80 weeks later after the halving, there's a huge bear market almost every single cycle. And so right now, Bitcoin is nowhere near the 80th week. We're coming up really on the most bullish part of this trend. And what I'm thinking is we hit a nice price going into, that 50th week, get a big breakdown, shake out the market. People will say the cycle is definitely over before we actually hit our peak of the cycle around the 80th week. Very volatile, very uncomfortable, but that's how it goes in this market. And that is the Bitcoin halving cycle profit indicator on TradingView. It is free to use. If we look at the total 3, this is the altcoin market cap. You can see in the last cycle, we hit the 40th week and then went up 170% for all the altcoins as a whole, not individual coins, but all of them together went up 170%. That includes all the high cap coins except Ethereum, right? Ethereum is not included in the total 3 index, but that's a pretty big move for all the altcoins to go up 170% collectively. It's a very big move from that 40th week after the halving. That's where things got a really, really bullish for the altcoins. And what was Bitcoin doing while that was happening? When the alts went to the moon for the first time in the cycle, what was Bitcoin doing? It was actually just settling up at the high. So Bitcoin got to a really high price and just started chopping. And when it was chopping around, the total 3 went to the moon before a huge all is lost moment right before your final end of cycle push into the bear market, which starts 80 weeks after the halving, usually. So in this cycle right now, the altcoins are currently not even at the 40th. Well, we're not at the 40th week post halving. We haven't even gotten the all-time high break. In the last cycle, when you broke that high, it was 170% for the total 3 as a whole, 170% up. Maybe it won't be as much percent, but still, there's a major move ahead of us before we get all that volatility and maybe those final pumps into the end of the cycle. But the most bullish part of the cycle has not even started yet, hasn't even begun yet. So we have multiple more weeks to go where Bitcoin can get really, really bullish and continue to be bullish. And the altcoins also will look for a major pump over the next couple months, in my opinion. Now, if we go down to the Bitcoin dominance chart, you see where Bitcoin dominance is right now. Well, we have had actually a lower high and a lower low. And what you'll notice in previous cycles is that right after the 40th week, the halving takes place 40 weeks later, that's when dominance really starts to plummet. After the 40th week, a huge plummet in dominance. Same thing with 2017. Right around that 40th week is when the biggest drop in dominance takes place. Of course, there's a lot of volatility in the dominance chart, but ultimately it's trending down. And if you look over here for Bitcoin, currently we're not even at the 40th week post halving. We're getting really close though. And once we get into this green zone past the 40th week, that's when I think Bitcoin dominance is going to start to take a big tumble and altcoins are going to take over in dominance for the time being. But if Bitcoin continues to pump to new highs over the coming months, dominance may actually end up chopping sideways for a little bit before the plummet. Kind of like over here, when we had, as we entered the 40th week, dominance is chopping, and then plummets later because everything was going up at that point. And so dominance was flat because Bitcoin was going up, altcoins were going up, so the dominance just stays the same. That's what happened right at the 40th week. And then a few weeks later, a month or two later, we plummet in dominance and altcoins take over the market. Very likely to be something similar in this cycle. Dominance chops in this zone and then plummets a bit later. So that's what I'm looking for moving forward. Now, the reason why I'm still pretty confident in everything here is because the S&P 500 is still continuing up. And as long as the S&P 500 is continuing to maintain this uptrend, then my bias is going to be generally bullish on crypto, right? Because as long as the stock market, the global markets are trending up or stable, then crypto does really well. Things get bad for crypto really only when the traditional markets start to plummet, because then speculators get really worried. There's not much confidence at that point. It's really all just a confidence game. That's what speculation is all about. So you want the stock market to be generally trending up in order for crypto speculators to be confident enough to speculate into Bitcoin, into new all-time highs, and into these risky assets, altcoins and stuff like that. But that is going to be it for me today, guys. Hope you enjoyed this video. Bitcoin playing out the same style breakout as 2021 so far. Retested the 50 EMA and look to run again to new highs. We are in the next phase, which would be running to new all-time highs. If you guys enjoyed this video, hit the like button, subscribe to this channel, leave your comments below, and join the Patreon. It is the beginning of the month, which means that this is the best time to join. And every weekday morning, we do voice chats in the Discord, talking about Bitcoin, altcoins, charts, trends, trades. If you guys want to join the Discord, you have to be a Patreon member to get in Discord. And once you join Patreon, you go to the settings, connected apps tab, you connect your Discord account with Patreon, and you'll be loaded into the Discord. Hope you guys enjoyed. I'll see you all in the next one.